now. And so today we're going to be talking about a lot of the plant-based myths that come along with, why you should or shouldn't go with a plant-based diet. If you did miss the first 2 parts of our series, they are available on the Wellness Website's YouTube channel. So you can always look at those. You can see the cooking demos that we did with the chefs. So the first week, we did a microwave lentil and quinoa salad. The second week, we did a banana bite. So it's a really portable, I've only heard amazing things about it after we released that one little bite. And then today, unfortunately, our chef was not able to make it. Some things came up. So we're going to be showing a short clip just talking about the benefits of a plant-based diet coming from a physician. So let's get started. So I already talked about the plan for today. So we're going to start with the presentation. And if you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll address them all at the end. We will have a little bit of extra time because we're not doing that full cooking demo. So please feel free, if you have any questions, just to put those into the chat. So I want to touch on a little bit of what we talked about last week and the reasons why you might want to go plant-based. And the big one is the environmental impact here on campus. I hear a lot from students saying that they want to lower their carbon footprint. They want to improve their impact on the land, use less water. And one of the ways they're doing that is by going plant-based. And this graphic is really great because it shows you how much goes into a typical burger, about a 1/4 pound burger, 6.7 pounds of feed, 52 gallons of water, lots of land, essential fossil fuels. There's a lot that goes into that small amount of a burger. So by transitioning to a plant-based diet very slowly, maybe one meal at a time, 1 day a week, like we touched on last session, you are able to lower your carbon footprint. And the same thing goes for milks. So when you think about milk and the impact you have on your diet, just by switching your milk from a dairy milk to a rice milk or a soy milk or an oat milk or an almond milk, goodness, I mean, if you walk down the dairy aisle now, there are so many different types of plant-based milks. And I think I saw like a cashew almond blend last week. So you can find a good variety in chocolate, vanilla, unsweetened. So I encourage you, if you're trying to think about how can I transition, like we talked about last week using that worksheet, how can I slowly make those changes? Just switching your milk up can make a really big impact on your health, but also your goal to be more plant-based. So when it comes to sustainability, I do want to touch on some of the things we're doing on campus. So we do a lot of things kind of behind the scenes to improve our footprint as a whole in the William & Mary community, with all the students, faculty, and staff really supporting us every step of the way. So compost is a big thing. We have a lot of compost, a lot of food waste that comes out of the dining hall. We are all you care to eat, so a lot of students take more than their bellies can handle because we always eat with our eyes first. So that's where any leftover food does get composted. We also have a lot at Kelray Farm out in Toronto. And so there we have our interns and our sustainability fellow that grow vegetables. So anything from sweet potatoes, watermelon, potatoes, not this July, but last July, I was out there picking with the team, and oh my goodness, the amount of potatoes, I think it was something close to like 900 pounds. There's a lot that came out of that land. So a lot of good things going on there. If you've ever been to Commons Dining Hall, a lot of students call it the CAF. We have a hydroponic garden there that our sustainability fellow manages, and we have lots of herbs, spinach, romaine lettuce. We try to do a lot of herbs just because the hydroponic, you can't grow very tall things like tomatoes, but herbs go a long way. So we use herbs all over the dining hall at every station, so you're able to get a little bite of the hydroponics in your meal. Going to smaller plates within the dining hall. So instead of having huge plates that carry more food and lead to more food waste, but also need more water to clean and wash and sanitize, we've transitioned to just slightly smaller plates, nothing too small, but just, to encourage students to have your plate, enjoy it. And then if you want to go back for more, please do, but it also reduces your footprint a little bit as well. With COVID, Takeout containers are a big thing. So we have switched to many compostable containers, forks, knives, napkins, cups, you name it, just to help the students, the faculty, the staff, us as a dining team, lower our carbon footprint as well. And then before COVID, when we were able to use the reusable containers, you may have seen the green plastic containers. A lot of people actually use them just for Tupperware because they're actually a good size, used in the dining hall. So essentially that program was you would buy the to-go box for $5, fill it up, you can bring it back dirty, we give you a brand new clean one, it goes in the dish room, and then you can kind of keep recycling a container, which is a great program, and I can't wait to see that kind of re-up again. So let's address some of the common myths. The first one, is it hard to go plant-based? Stephanie and I have been talking a lot about this throughout our sessions, and I would say that going vegan is probably easier than going low carb or gluten-free, which often leaves you feeling hungry. You can eat pretty much as you want on a vegan diet with, you know, some limits. Certainly, we have to pay attention to making sure we're getting healthy fats, even if we're eliminating animal fats. Just remembering the calorie content and that there are 9 calories per gram of fat, just as a general rule. So that's for all fats, whether they're healthy or not healthy. So keep that in mind. But you know, you can sort of let go of the burden of feeling like you have to be counting calories and measuring things, you know, to the same degree, or counting carbs. So it's kind of liberating. And yes, a vegan diet does sacrifice animal products, but there are plenty of great substitutes for animal products that you will learn to enjoy as you experiment more with just a different tastes, different ethnic cuisines, which adds so much variety and interest to your food intake. Breaking a meat and dairy habit is really easier than quitting smoking. But keep in mind that there are certain foods, and specifically talking about animal fats and cheese, that have somewhat of an opiate effect, so that it makes cravings more difficult to break, and so that can be a little bit of a challenge as you're making the transition, but it is possible. So there basically are 2 rules to remember to make it easier, and that is you're building your plate from the power plate that we discussed in one of our earlier sessions, which is basically the legumes, the grains, the vegetables, and the fruits, so in the 4 quadrants. And then you're ensuring that you have complete nutrition, specifically speaking to B12, because we know that's not present in plant-based nutrition. It is in animal products because it comes from the bacteria in the soil that the animals are eating, and then we, in turn, it gets into their digestive system and out into the muscle, and then we eat the meat and the byproducts, and that's how we get B12 from our Western diet, and not really from vegan. So that's something to be cognizant of, and we got into that in earlier sessions. So, you know, as you're moving through the transition, you want to make sure that you take time to identify the vegan foods that you like, and just experimenting with those, and then incorporating them as this slide is addressing gradually. So we've got 3 categories here: the plant-based meals, where you're trying to incorporate 1 to 5 times per week. Plant-based, and that might be, instead of scrambled eggs for breakfast, you substitute with a tofu scramble and get protein that way. And for lunch, maybe a veggie burger over quinoa, cooked with vegetables, and maybe you still have cheese present because you're still having a little hard time giving that up. And then at dinner, have, you know, pretty much a typical dinner, spaghetti and meatballs. In the second column, the pescatarian vegetarian, where we're focusing on plants as the majority of our intake.
perhaps a yogurt berry bowl for breakfast. Lunch might also be plant-based with roasted tofu, cooked vegetables, and sweet potatoes. And then dinner, because we're allowing fish in our diet as a pescatarian, that would be our main protein. And then we would get more from the grains, the brown rice, and depending on which vegetables we choose, if it's spinach or peas, we're definitely getting some protein out of those. And then lastly, you know, the more purist vegan approach where we're eliminating all animal products. And so this is the ultimate goal, is to move towards complete plant-based for all 3 meals of the day. And then also as we're integrating snacks in between meals. So getting protein throughout the day, through all meals and snacks is important. Next slide. All right, so second myth, as a plant-based eater, is it difficult to get protein? And we've hit on this topic throughout our presentations. So the answer is no. According to the US government, you know, women probably need about 46 grams of protein per day, men about 56. This comes from looking at an average size male or female, figuring out the number of kilograms that they weigh, and multiplying it by a protein formula, which is 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram per day, and coming up with you know, the amount that one should have daily. So if you ate nothing but broccoli for a day, you would get probably about 146 grams of protein on a typical 2,000 calorie diet. The same would be true if you ate nothing but lentils for a day. You would achieve well beyond your protein requirement of 46 for women and 55 grams for men. So we're not suggesting that you eat one food all day long, but it's to illustrate a point that plant-based foods have high nutrition content. And here we see a comparison. We have used this slide in previous sessions. It's just a wonderful way to show you that as you think about your power plate in those 4 quadrants, we do have some vegetables, spinach and green peas, that have, you know, a reasonable amount considering they're greens of protein. And then as we look at some of our plant-based products, the tempeh, the seitan, the tofu, beans and lentils, veggie burgers, nuts, edamame, quinoa, you know, varying degrees, but certainly higher than some of the vegetables. And then for our dairy products, which if we're purely vegan, we're not consuming dairy, but if we're lacto-vegan, we are. And so cottage cheese and Greek yogurt are shown as comparisons. So yes, you can definitely get enough protein on a plant-based diet. So the next myth is really centering about the topic of around soy. And so just want to speak to soy just generally for a minute. Soy is actually a unique food that is widely studied for both its estrogenic and anti-estrogenic effects in the body. There have been some conflicting conclusions about soy over time, and that's largely due to the wide variation in how soy has been studied. So, you know, we have many studies that are out there, but it's hard to really make comparisons. Generally speaking, soy has been shown to have a beneficial or sometimes just a neutralizing effect in various populations on various health conditions. The second important point about soy is that it is nutrient dense as a protein source, and it can be safely consumed really for anyone several times a week, and is likely to provide health benefits, things like benefits for women going through menopause that might, as their estrogen levels are declining, might get that phytoestrogen benefit mildly, but some benefit. For hot flashes, reducing hot flashes. We see it impacting cognitive function, as benefits. And so as we answer the question that are raised here, men should limit how much soy they eat. Not really, because we know, for instance, for prostate cancer that men who consume more calcium from milk and phosphorus may have higher incidence of prostate cancer, but there's really not been a soy link there. And women with breast cancer or risk of breast cancer, should they limit soy products? Again, a lot of studies in the past and some that are ongoing, which are not really showing that that is a concern. All right, so should children follow a plant-based diet? Yes. Children raised on a plant-based diet, are going to be ahead of the game with just a better diet, better health long-term, because we know that a lot of the benefits of plant-based nutrition in reducing chronic long-term health problems such as cardiovascular disease, coronary artery disease, and clogging, that actually begins in childhood. And so if we can begin to ward that off early on, you're going to be much better off. General rules are going to be, again, building our menu from healthy staples. Again, the power plate that we talked about, making sure we're including a B12 supplement or using something like nutritional yeast, which is kind of like fish food, is what it looks like in a shaker container. You can find it in any grocery store. But to supplement with something like that, or sometimes an actual supplement, depending on what the B12 blood work is showing, if you're seeing a child that is truly following plant-based nutrition. Make sure you're getting vitamin D from sunshine, and if not enough, then through supplementation. And beginning with simple foods to introduce those to kids, providing snacks, and just letting them try different things, but definitely a benefit for children and a safe alternative.
Thank you, Nancy. So the next thing is, humans are natural carnivores. No, there's a lot of research that shows that we have evolved to eat both meat and plants, berries. We're constantly foraging for things, tubers, potatoes, all of those things that come from the ground. Our ancestors way back have eaten for a very, very long time. So we are considered omnivores as humans. So we eat both plants and animals and can thrive off of both, which is fantastic. And with new research, evolving research, we are able to show a health benefit to transitioning to a little bit more plant-based. This isn't saying that you have to be vegan, absolutely not. It's just saying that the more plants you're able to incorporate into your diet, whether that be a plant-based breakfast, a lunch, a dinner every now and then, is a huge win for your health in the future and for your energy levels now. Carbohydrates are fattening. Oh my goodness, if I can just kibosh this myth. No, carbohydrates are not fattening. It's the total intake of your day that we have to look at when you're trying to think about weight gain, weight management, and those sorts of things. We're thinking about how much are you taking in calorically? What is your metabolism level at? The human body is not as simple as calories in, calories out, as every fitness guru on social media would like you to think. It is much more complex. There's a lot more going on. As you begin to restrict, especially things like carbohydrates, your metabolism reacts and tends to slow down because your body wants to make sure that it's preserving its energy, and that's where fat stores can increase. So there is a lot that goes into weight management, but I'm here to tell you, please enjoy your carbohydrates. They're a great fuel for your muscles. They're a fantastic fuel and the primary fuel for your brain. So making sure that you're getting in adequate carbohydrates and really focusing on those complex carbohydrates we've been talking about all throughout this series. So those complex carbs are things that have a lot of fiber to them, a lot of vitamins, a lot of minerals. So thinking about things like quinoa, barley, whole wheat bread, multigrain breads, sweet potatoes, things that have a lot of fiber, but also a lot of nutrients to them as well to support your health both now and in the future. Is honey vegan? Technically, no. It is not. Technically, again, it depends on where you are on that plant-based spectrum. There is no rule. When it comes to plant-based, please don't feel like you have to put yourself in a bucket. I want to say this now. You could be anywhere. You could be a vegan who eliminates all plant-based or all animals except for honey, right? It's up to you to make your decision, but just know that honey is technically not vegan because it comes from bees. This is something we want to think about as we're going through, because a lot of things like granola, breads, pastries, that are more plant-based tend to use honey as a sweetener just because it's technically more natural. But remember that it's technically not vegan. Is it vegan sugar? This is one that I find so interesting. So technically, most white sugar is not vegan. Now, the sugar itself is, but again, it depends on how strict you want to be within your diet. The way most sugars are processed is using bone char. And so that technically does introduce an animal product, which makes it not vegan. If you're someone who's being very strict about your plant-based diet, maybe taking the environmental or animal welfare approach, this may be something that you want to look out for as you're trying to build your plant-based diet. If you're someone who is just trying to incorporate more plants in your diet and doesn't want to make life more stressful, then, there's no need to check in to see exactly how your sugar is processed if you're using just a little bit in your coffee or something like that. Is it vegan Oreos? Yes. Technically, that fluff in the middle is not milk at all. So technically, by technicality, vegans can have Oreos. And I learned this a fun way in college. My roommate was vegan and she brought home Oreos. And I was like, what are you doing? Let's have milk. And I learned the hard way that they are very much vegan, because that middle part that we all love so much is just straight sugar and fat. And so something to think about as you're maneuvering the plant-based world is, it depends on how strict you'd like to be. Just because you buy something that's vegan also doesn't mean it's healthier for you or more enriching. Now, those who know me know I'm a firm believer that dessert should be the 6th food group, because I love desserts as a dietitian. Most people don't expect that, but it's just all about a time, a place, and a portion. So yes, vegan desserts are great, but again, just because they're vegan doesn't mean that you can have a larger portion or have them more often. It still means that they are desserts. Is it vegan jello? Traditional jello is not vegan because it comes from gelatin, which comes from animals. So traditional jello is not vegan. However, a lot of manufacturers are starting to realize that veganism, plant-based diets are really growing. So they're thinking about other alternatives when it comes to making jello. So carrageenan, which is an Irish algae, is used a lot. Agar, pectin, and other gelatin alternatives a lot of people are using for jello itself. But if you're familiar with chia seeds, which we've talked about a few times here, they are another gelatinous-like substance. So you can make things like chia seed pudding. They absorb a lot of water and they kind of give you that gelatin effect as well. So with a vitamin, or not a vitamin, but an omega-3 boost. So lots of good stuff coming from the plant kingdom. So when you're thinking about veganism, or even just adding more plants into your diet, see if you can eliminate, 1 or 2 animal products from simple things and just choosing that plant-based alternative.
Our nutrition is medicine prescription is kind of a fun way to think about lifestyle changes that incorporate plant-based nutrition, but also hit on some of the other important lifestyle measures. And so, yes, reducing meat and dairy and eggs are important, and making sure we're supplementing with B12 so that we're getting complete nutrition. But it's really important to think about exercise and its role, for cardiovascular health, for reducing Alzheimer's risk and preventing cognitive decline, because we know that Alzheimer's is a disease of the Western diet. It's a cardiovascular disease. So Exercise is important. So, 30, 45 minutes, 5 times a week, trying to get in, in the order of 10,000 steps at a time, which is about 5 miles, is the American Heart Association goal. And, whatever way you can get in movement is important, especially over this past year when we've all been more sedentary. We've had to make some real conscious efforts to get out and move. Breathing, this is kind of ties in with number 4 as well, self-care and breathing, meditation, all the benefits for stress relief. And we know how stress impacts our health significantly. So think about these 4 as lifestyle changes. And also, I just wanted to throw out, there's a book that's in your references that is by Dr. Michael Krieger, who wrote How Not to Die. And he comes up with a daily dozen, which I thought was interesting to share from his text. He recommends 3 servings of beans a day, 1 of berries, 3 of other fruits, 1 of cruciferous vegetables, 2 of leafy greens, 2 servings of other vegetables, 1 of flax seeds to get the omega-3s, 1 of nuts. But again, remember that rule about 9 calories per gram when we're talking about fats. Spices, lots of fresh herbs, and spices certainly help to change things up and make some of these vegan options that we're not used to just more palatable and more satiable. 3 servings of whole grains, lots of beverages. So the importance of water throughout the day, he says 5 servings. So think of it as at least 5 glasses. You have 1 with each meal, which just helps with digestion. We know how important it is for reducing the GI side effects of taking in more fiber. And then if you had a glass, in between each meal, trying to avoid, drinking later at night, which can then make you get up and have to use the bathroom. So again, 5 servings of fluids, preferably water, and, lower caffeine intake. And then lastly, exercise every day. So those are his 12 daily dozen recommendations. All right, sustaining a plant-based diet on the go. I think if we talk about, all these different situations, we have to really think about in advance how we're going to handle them. And for instance, at work, if you have access to a refrigerator and a microwave, which most of us do, we can heat up leftovers that perhaps we've prepared on the weekend and made extra portions and bring those in. We can get pre-made salads. We can get canned soups that are vegan or dry soup packets and add water. We can bring in hummus and veggies. The nut balls that we made last week are great for a little pickup snack when you're getting sleepy in the afternoon at your computer. Fresh fruit, a rice bowl. If there are work parties and social things happening, bring something that's vegan if you're contributing to what's being provided, and that will introduce foods to other coworkers, and maybe that'll have them start asking questions and getting interested in joining you. But keep it simple. That's the key. With restaurants, so many different cuisines out there to explore, and every restaurant pretty much now, whether it's fast food or otherwise, is going to have vegan options. So really fun to explore. And with travel, you do really have to plan ahead, even though airlines, for instance, will have vegan options and you can arrange for those meals ahead of time. If you're able to bring food on the plane and to pack some things ahead, that's probably going to be your better option and keep you from, spending a lot of extra money at the airport too on food. And with social gatherings, good to, again, if you're contributing food, take a vegan option for people to try. Most of the time there's going to be something there that you can choose, or just eat ahead so that you're not hungry when you go there. But fruits are often, options and veggie trays. So it is possible. And then grocery store, sustaining the plant-based diet on the go is another whole area of exploration. I think if you are able to get into a store like, what's next door? Earth Fare, and just go up and down the aisles and just look at all the offerings and check out some of the labels. It's quite amazing. The frozen food section opens up a world of quick and convenient options. So check the freezer section. Vegan burritos, it's endless. Vegan pizzas are, a choice. The canned food aisle will have many options. Pre-made foods, and go for, ultra easy recipes as you start out and embark on this quest. And, again, cooking on the weekends and portioning things out and freezing them is a great way to help sustain you through the week when you're busy working and doing lots of other things. And I think it's helpful if you can just always keep some staples in your pantry, cans of beans, things that you can easily add into meals that you're preparing that might be quick, and then trips to the grocery to get fresh produce and to have that on hand are going to be more frequent, but just keeping the staples in your pantry. That way, if you're entertaining, you can, also cater some to different food preferences. And if you're going to someone's house for dinner, it's good to let them know that you are trying to practice plant-based nutrition, so that, there are probably going to be options there for you, but it's just kind of nice to let the host know, but that you don't expect them to, be preparing a vegan meal for you if that's not how they roll. All right, next slide.
Yeah, Nancy, those are great tips, especially the pre-prepared ones. I love walking through like the frozen grocery aisle and kind of looking and seeing like Banza, which is the plant-based bean pasta, just came out with a vegan pizza. That I was very impressed with, because to be honest with you, some of them are not great. But when you're looking for quick options, this is it was definitely a good quick option that you compare with a salad or something like that. So it was a nice kind of, I'd say half of it's a personal pizza.
Oh, we'll look for that. Will that be at Earth Fare?
I found it at Target.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
So just kind of checking things out, seeing what's kind of available more mainstream, but lots of options. But we understand that there's going to be bumps in the road. There's going to be some challenges. Not everyone's perfect. You may be switching to plant-based to lose a couple of pounds and you're not losing weight, or you may switch to plant-based for health-based reasons and you lose too much weight, which is also a negative thing. You may experience lack of support from family and friends, and just remember that the plant-based diet isn't for everyone. I know one thing, just being open and explaining why you're doing it, and also not forcing your beliefs on other people, is a big part of being plant-based. A lot of times when you say the word vegan, you'll get someone who like crinkles their nose or might roll their eyes, so just saying plant-based doesn't put you in that bucket. And it also gives you the freedom to, if you are vegetarian and you want, something that's not plant-based, you don't get judged for it because you're plant-based. You don't have to shove yourself in a bucket. You could just always be plant-based. You may feel that you're stuck in a rut with lack of variety. Highly recommend going online. Pinterest is a gold mine. Google is fantastic for plant-based recipes. All of the books that we have in the references have a variety of recipes, or their websites have great recipes. The PETA website, so you traditionally think of like animals, they've got an awesome recipe log on their website as well. If you feel that you're craving animal products, ask yourself, what are you missing in your diet? Did you go from a very high-fat animal diet to an incredibly low-fat plant-based diet? Can you add some healthy, well-rounded plant-based fats in to help things be more enjoyable, help you keep more full? Because fats are important from a nutrition standpoint, but also from an enjoyability standpoint. You don't want to just eat raw vegetables all the time. You may not see your lab work improve right away, and that's okay. Sometimes it takes time to really show that change, but you will see the change, over time as you improve your health, improve your fiber intake as well. You may experience some gastrointestinal symptoms, whether that be bloating, discomfort, nausea, increased bowel movements. Just give your body the time to adjust. Never jump 2 feet into anything. So when it comes to a plant-based diet, take it one day at a time. You don't want to go from, an average diet with, an average amount of fiber to a very high fiber diet. Just remembering that fiber and water are best friends. So if you increase your fiber, please increase your water as well. Your energy level might change. You may experience changes in your sleep, or you may find that you're not eating enough during the day and you're not getting a variety of proteins. That's where that transition and doing that transition slowly is really, really important, because you want to make sure you're not just lopping off an entire food group and not replacing it with something that you're comfortable with. So don't eliminate all your chicken if you're not comfortable eating tofu yet. Learn how to make tofu, slowly incorporate beans, tempeh, until you get more comfortable, and then you can slowly eliminate those plant-based foods. And lastly is caffeine management. So if you find that you're having that energy slump and you're reaching for your 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, goodness, whatever cup of coffee it is during the day, take a look back. Maybe you're not eating enough energy during the day and you need more fuel. Lots of resources on campus. Campus dining sustainability team is awesome. The health center, the counseling center, the wellness center, the rec center. There's so many great places on campus that are here to support you in your plant-based journey, but also in your self-care and your wellness journey across the board. So many great things, especially now. The one silver lining kind of COVID is that everything's online, it's recorded. You could do things from the comfort of your office or your home and really learn and educate and improve your overall health while not truly having to leave your home.
Except to move and exercise.
Yes, except to move and exercise. Highly recommend getting outside. We live in such a beautiful area, so if you can walk CW if you're on campus or on your neighborhood, always a fantastic option there. So before we get to questions, I do want to share a video in place of the cooking demo. So just give me one moment to flip my screen over.
So this is actually a cardiologist who is based in Houston, Texas, and in their practice, they actually have plant-based nutrition on site. So they're teaching patients real time. And so it's his testimony briefly, it's under 10 minutes of his journey, and then the benefits for the patient. He does show some actual tests that prove that the arteries can open up and reduce heart disease and on. So
I am hoping that you are able to hear this audio. If you're not, please just let me know in the chat. I can see that come through, and then I will just share the link directly with you, and you guys can watch it tonight in your own time.
Hi, I'm Dr. Baxter Montgomery. I'm a cardiologist and cardiac electrophysiologist here in Houston, Texas. 13 years ago, we started integrating our clinical treatment with plant-based nutrition. So the heart here is in congestive heart failure, beating around 20 to 24%. Here it's beating about 50%. After being on a plant-based diet for 78 days, much improved. Someone in her condition may have needed, surgery, could have needed a bypass surgery. She may have needed a defibrillator. She may have even, been placed on the heart transplant list. But instead of that, with plant-based nutrition, the heart improves significantly. And these are the types of findings we see on a regular basis. It's important for individuals to know that, despite how sick you are, we've seen individuals who are very ill. In fact, I've treated 2 different patients who were in the hospital on life support. One person on life support, we fed her green food through her PEG tube, and I detoxed her in the hospital, and she eventually walked out. So don't give up. We haven't gotten into the most fundamental aspect of our health, which is how we take care of the human frame. And it's as simple as plant-based food, fresh air, sunshine, and water. So there's a huge obsession with protein, and a lot of this has to do with the education of the nutrition and medical community, or perhaps miseducation, if you will, and protein is emphasized. The Western society, as with other societies, Animal protein is a major component of what people eat. When I was growing up, you didn't have a meal if there was not, dead animal flesh on the table. Animal protein can trigger inflammation. It has adverse effects on the kidney. It can have adverse effects on the blood vessels, adverse effects on the heart. You get more than enough protein from plant-based foods. The most important nutrient, in my opinion, is water. The healthy human body in its healthy state is about 70-75% water. I'll pose a question. I say, well, if you were, left on an island and deserted for just say 25 days, you can have 25 days worth of baked chicken, or you have 25 days of water. You can't have both, one or the other. And almost invariably, people choose the water because they know that they can't survive 25 days without water. As much as we emphasize eating the proper food, which starts and ends with a plant-based diet, it's also important to get fresh air and sunshine on a regular basis. So at least a couple of hours. Man-made rainbows. Oh wow. Another patient who's currently in her mid-90s came to see us at the age of 89, and at that time she was taking about 22 medications, including about 40 units of insulin twice a day, and she'd been on insulin for 40 years. We put her on a raw detox, and we got off the insulin within a couple of days of her being on the raw detox. She's down to taking no medications the last I've seen, and she hardly has to come and see us as a patient. She's in her mid-90s now. I came into this arena as a traditional doctor, doing procedures and setting them on the optimal medications. However, when I made this discovery for my own health and then subsequently for my patients, I made a major change. As far as I know, we're the only facility in the United States that has an on-site plant-based restaurant that integrates it all in one. If I'm a physician who likes steak and eggs, it would be very difficult for me to counsel and aggressively counsel a patient away from eating these foods. This is our commercial kitchen, our restaurant, and the medical facility of the future will have a designated restaurant kitchen that functions not only from a culinary standpoint, but also from a scientific standpoint. We see individuals getting severe congestive heart failure, which is often thought of as a death sentence. But when they make fundamental changes in the way they eat, they go from a death sentence to a life sentence. And that's an important differential.
I'm Patricia Wiggins, and this is my husband, Carl. He's Dr. Montgomery's patient. In this 3-week time, he's eliminated about 40 pounds of fluid from his body, and his mental clarity is much better, and he's now walking without his cane. When we came in, he could barely walk with the cane, and he had to hold on to me or to the wall or something to steady himself.
So what you can see here is a model of an artery, and there's several slices here. And when someone consumes a diet high in saturated fat, and saturated fat, by the way, is code word for animal protein fat. If you then start to look anywhere an artery has this amount of disease, you're compromising blood flow to that organ. And if a thin core ruptures, that's what leads to a heart attack. And so this predisposed to heart disease. This is the type of lesion that would be considered for a stent placement or for bypass surgery. However, you can reverse this type of disease with optimal plant-based nutrition. It was that severe.
He wanted to make food our medicine and not pharmaceuticals. The added bonus is the fact that he is an MD, he is a cardiologist, he does know that part of medicine, and he's not against it if it's needed.
So if you were to look at all of the healthcare facilities here, all the hospitals, all the emergency rooms in this expansive medical center, and we were to walk around and search for one patient who was suffering from protein deficiency, we'd be challenged to find one. In regards to the prevalence of heart disease among different ethnic groups, the CDC clearly shows that African American women have the most heart disease in terms of prevalence and morbidity mortality from heart disease. Next to them would be African American men. More women die from heart disease than men in general, and then more African American women die from heart disease than any other race, gender segment that we know of. Availability, convenience, these are all important things that I find, and I think it's going to make a difference the more we make the food available. People do not realize how delicious plant food is. At the end of the day, it's going to be the food that makes the difference. I have a lot of friends who are ethical vegans, and I applaud you. When I came into eating plant-based, I wasn't aware of the horrors that happen to animals, and I think there's more messaging needs to come about with that. The other aspect of being ethical vegans is that we have to look at our own bodies, and we have to be ethical to ourselves first and foremost, because if we're not healthy, then we can't be a benefit to others, animals, etc. So I often tell my patients that the number one animal you want to be ethical to is yourself. So foods that are minimally processed, raw, you want a lot of live foods that has the water content is maintained. These are going to be some of the most healthy foods, and if it is cooked, you want to either dehydrate it at relatively low temperatures, boil or steam it. And these are some simple approaches that individuals can take to consume a diet that's not only healthy for the environment as a whole, but also healthy for your local environment, which is your body. If we can fundamentally change the way we eat, we can get rid of the need for so much expense and so much time and effort toward helping people get better, or I should say, helping people live with their illnesses. We can just simply change what they eat, we can help them reverse their conditions and live a healthier life.